Skin cancer is plaguing New Zealand. Looking into the future, trends show that this plague is only going to continue unless someone steps in. Good afternoon, I'm Patrick, and alongside me this afternoon is Nathan, Miljana and Sarah, and we couldn't be more proud to present to you our strategy to help Skin Vision help New Zealanders spot the difference. Facing Skin Vision are two key drivers. First and foremostly, you're in a very conservative medical industry. You're very resistant to change. Secondly, as aforementioned, there are high skin cancer rates and they're growing tremendously within New Zealand. In response to these two drivers, we've devised three strategies. First strategy is creating trust within the market through government backing. The second strategy is creating awareness through creative campaigning. And the last strategy is creating longevity for Skin Vision through our partnerships with insurance companies. From this, we've identified two key outcomes for Skin Vision. Firstly, you're going to experience increased users. And secondly, you will have developed $100 million in revenue streams by 2020.
So let's take a look at your company's current goals. You wanted $100 million in revenue in the next 5 years, and you also wanted a self-sustainable business model. And we feel that this is totally achievable. But there are some key issues that will stop you from getting there if something isn't done about them. It's currently difficult to procure and engage consumers in this market. And as previously mentioned, the industry is very resistant to change. However, there's also an invincibility complex, that she'll be right attitude, that means that skincare in New Zealand and keeping skin cancer away from you is not often seen as something that's on the top priority of New Zealanders. So when we look at the New Zealand market in more detail, we see it's got the highest percentage of skincare cancer. We also see there's a high expenditure on healthcare. Additionally, we also see that the majority of them live in these urban locations, and there's also problems with the general practitioners and their level of accuracy, and also the availability of dermatologists. So let's take a look at your competitors and the competitive market. Those top three competitors, we feel your company has a competitive advantage over. With your high levels of accuracy that you're also going to increase as more and more photos are added to your service, and it's also relatively cheaper and easier to use for people as they can use it at home and on the go.
So going forward, looking at expanding your business and really honing in on the medical industry, who do you target? Users or medical practitioners? Well, users are a far easier market to tap into, and medical practitioners and the medical industry poses significant challenges. And here's why. Firstly, the medical industry is very resistant to change. They have current habits and strategies already in place and are very late in adopting the latest and newest in technologies. If they do adopt these technologies, it might be far later down the track. This doesn't align with your current organization's needs and strategic goals. Secondly, specialists tend not to be as technologically savvy. This is because medical practitioners who specialize in dermatology and skin diseases often are over the ages of 50 and have already got customs in place and have current rituals and routines. Lastly, this industry is very difficult to penetrate. The entire medical industry is already accustomed to its general procedures and general ways of implementing and preventing skin cancer within New Zealand. That's why making users a far more attractive market to tap into.
So let's take a look at these users a bit closer, the ones that we feel are the best ones to target. We feel as though they're that 16 to 30-year-old. And they also are in the sort of middle income. They have that she'll be right attitude, and they behave in groups. They're also very avid on social media and other technological bases. So, with this knowledge, we developed our strategy. Here are some of the alternative strategies that we didn't progress with. We firstly thought about partnering with dermatologists. However, the sheer lack of dermatologists and the amount of spare time that they have means that there's no way that they'd be able to give any of their time to help our strategy. We also thought about targeting medical professionals. However, as you've just heard, this is not feasible. We also thought about initially partnering with NGOs and getting government funding. However, your company and these organizations have conflicting values, as your company is for profit. So, this leads to our strategy of spotting the difference. Firstly, utilizing the trust and gaining the trust of New Zealanders, gaining awareness through social media, and lastly, delivering a plan for your company's future and adding longevity.
Going forward, our first strategy looks at building trust. The way you can build trust with your users is by partnering with the government. The current New Zealand government is facing a significant problem, that is rising social health costs. Cancer continues to be a huge concern and a huge cost for the New Zealand government, especially with expenditure reaching approximately 11% of GDP. Your platform provides them with a solution. The government is always looking for ways to reduce these costs and adopt the latest in medical technologies. Your platform helps them achieve this goal, and it further aligns with their 5 strategic pillars, namely returning independence and control back to the users. Partnering with the government will help you achieve 2 key outcomes, those being public recognition as well as public trust. An app and a platform that has New Zealand government backing and recognition will be highly attractive to your current users as well as new users who are looking for new technologies to help them reduce the risk of obtaining skin cancer.
So after you've established trust within the market, that's when you start to develop more awareness and get it out throughout the broader New Zealand. We've devised a campaign to develop this awareness. It involves skin checking at high foot traffic locations. Ultimately, it will involve passers-by being offered to utilize the app to check their skin and for the quick 20 seconds. They'll also be given UV patches, which will be able to monitor the UV rate that they're currently being exposed to. The footage obtained from this social media also, the skin checking with the public will also allow the public to gain that awareness through a very direct and intimate communication channel. They'll see the ins and outs of the application. They'll be able to see how it works and how they can utilize it for themselves personally. The footage obtained throughout this skin checking will then be posted onto social media. Within this social media, there'll be tagging initiatives, which are currently utilized by other businesses. Tagging initiatives such as tag your mate who gets sunburn at the beach, or tag a mate who doesn't check themselves. Inclusive of this will be hashtagging, such as she won't be right, to counter that current ideology that's so prevalent within New Zealand that she'll be right, because at the end of the day, it won't be right. In terms of duration of this campaign, the initial skin checking campaign and at the stalls in these high traffic areas will be for approximately 1 month. However, the footage obtained from this will be continued on for 6 months, and they'll be posted on Facebook and Instagram. We approximate the cost for this to be at approximately $125,000, and as aforementioned, they'll be placed in high foot traffic areas, and on social media, they'll be placed on Facebook and Instagram.
So now you have trust from your government backing. Now you have awareness in the greater community about not only the dangers of the sun, but the accuracy and ease of your app. Our analysis has shown that the next step for you is to seek a partnership. We note already that you are in partnership with a smaller insurance company. However, once you've reached this greater penetration of the market, you can seek larger insurance companies such as Southern Cross Insurance to partner with. Now, you may ask, what is the incentive? Well, they can go ahead and put your app out there for their customers to use. Now, from the customer's perspective, they have mandatory screening through your app for their moles within the year. And in return of this, they get lower premiums, which is something that is incredibly useful for the lower age group demographic. In addition to this, the insurance companies will have better understanding of their customers, as well as the ability to go ahead and decrease the amount of claims they'll get for helping advance melanomas due to the early detection. This will then help you move into the public health arena as you already have a foothold in the private. Now, moving on to implementation, we know that there is an accuracy study being released in the early 2017 noting your 88% accuracy. You can go off the back of this and seek government's backing, which increases your ability to launch your campaign. Within 2019, you'll grab your insurance partnerships and expand into the public industry in 2020. So overall, what has this given you? You've obtained and engaged your customers by utilizing this app and increasing trust. You've not only reached but exceeded your goal of $100 million, and you've increased your awareness in the medical industry.
Thank you very much. That's great. I'm interested in your customer profile, age 16 to 30, where your highest risk, or where you're going to get skin cancer, is over 50 and in male. So why would we target the 16 to 30-year-olds, which are lower risk?
So we targeted this age demographic because we realized that your app is all about helping prevent measures. So these social marketing campaigns have been directly related to those so that they can help prevent the skin condition from happening. In 40 to 50, we see that this is still occurring, but we want to focus on preventing the skin cancers because this will help out with the insurance premiums.
We also note that from the studies, it's seen that children and younger people tend to be more at risk of developing the early stages of skin cancer, which are then seen in the later years in the 50 plus category. So if you can get families to really utilize this app and be aware of the risks younger, then you have less likelihood of seeing advanced melanomas in the older age demographic.
Just regarding your decision not to target doctors, how do you reconcile this with the fact if someone downloads a health app and then they see they get a high risk, the first thing they're probably going to do is go to their doctor. If you haven't targeted doctors to educate them about the app, the doctor might say, oh, that's rubbish, I don't know what that is, go away. How do you justify not doing something with doctors so that they don't sort of just discredit it immediately?
Going forward and targeting doctors proves very challenging. Currently entering that industry and trying to place in educative measures is quite challenging, difficult, and you can't really ensure the consistency in ensuring that every doctor passes on the application and signs up on board. But by increasing the user base, you're generating that demand, and the health industry will then naturally follow that.
We also see by targeting the government that they'll also be able to, these doctors will be able to see the fact that this is backed up by the government, and then they'll be able to see that this is an effective app. And additionally, will be able to, even if they don't believe the app, they will still be able to check out that melanoma that has alerted the customer and has alerted the person that they need to get it possibly checked out.
I'm sorry, I'm just going to go back to that demographic again, because they don't start to develop till in later life. So if you did a skin check all the time, nothing will come up. It's only as they start to develop will the app say you've got a development. So if you keep doing it between 16 and 30, you won't have a problem, so you'd stop doing it. So I struggle with that. My second question is, when you say partner with the government, what do you want them to do? Are they going to endorse you? Are they going to put a stamp on your advertising? Are they going to say, how do you partner with them?
So I'll answer your first question about the demographic. We've seen children as young as 20 years old, and there's been a lot of media coverage about children with 20 years old, and what we're trying to do is raise that awareness and raise that profile. If people as young as 20 are getting cancer, then we want to stop that at its core. While it's very effective to identify people with skin cancers in that 40 to 50, we want to really prevent that by alerting them earlier in their life about the dangers of skin cancer and getting them to check their moles to let them know maybe it won't be high risk, but going from that low to medium risk.
So in terms of answering that second part of that question, in partnering with the government, you're not looking at seeking funding or anything along those lines, because that will be difficult to obtain. You're really just looking for the endorsement, the backing of your app, which we think is quite achievable given the fact that the government is facing significant social cost issues and is really looking at getting behind new technologies that will help them, but also help the public in general in preventing cancer.
So let's say the government did that, is it likely that the competitors would also seek that backing?
Yes, it is attractive to other competitors to
And is it likely that the government will also back competitor solutions? To try to be agnostic, right? I mean,
Yeah.
we're going to back this, but actually we're not going to back that. That's tough.
That is a very fair comment. That's why with our strategy and our implementation, we seek to partner with the government straight away. We really look at strengthening that tie and continuing to work with them in the future. So you develop not just a strong relationship in the initial stages, but you work with them long term, because cancer will always be a huge medical issue and will always be around.
But is it fair to say that that might be a potential competitive advantage, the pure government backing? In other words, you'll be on with your program, but the government is likely to endorse competitors' solutions too.
Yes.
So it's sort of like first mover advantage.
Yeah, we'll gain that first
But you
mover
need the government
advantage.
backing.
Exactly. By having that government backing, we'll gain that first mover advantage.
Yeah, yeah.
And by solving that issue there with the doctors not being too sure whether it's sustainable or not, you can show this is backed by the New Zealand government there.
And given the implementation plan that we have, we're really utilising that first mover advantage. We're moving straight away once that study has been released of the 88% accuracy, which will only increase as more users utilise this app. You're then going straight into that campaigning, using that first mover advantage with the government funding, going straight into the insurance company partnership, again utilising that, and then going with the insurance company and the government in order to penetrate the public sector.
Just in your awareness campaign, do you think 1 month is enough for skin checking across the country?
Well, of course, that 1 month figure can be subject to change. It does depend ultimately, because at current time, that's how we approximated would be enough to be successful in implementing this. However, it could take more months than just one.
We've seen it be very successful with the Nivea campaign for the current skin cancer. So what they did was they went around and they set up sort of stalls and they showed people the fact that they weren't covered by the UV, and they put the sunscreen on and showed them that they in fact were covered by this UV by using the ultraviolet spectrum in order to tell them no. That lasted for about a month, and then they utilised that on social media. So at a time where we see this sort of, if it dies down, then we may revamp up the strategy. We feel as though for that first 6 month period, the social media was enough to push Nivea forward and make their sunscreen scales rise.
Right. You talked about NGO partnerships and that you wouldn't pursue those because the goals conflicted in terms of Skin Vision being for-profit and NGOs being non-for-profit. But governments are likely, when looking at a potential partnership, to look to NGOs like the Cancer Society, like Melanoma New Zealand, for backing and support. So tell me a bit more about how you decide that for-profit was more important than having the same goal in reducing skin cancer.
So we saw with that the initial strategy should not be to partner with these non-government organisations. And around the same time that we look to partner with these insurance premiums, we've already seen that your company has strong success with NGOs. However, we felt that in order to capture the initial market base, the first strategy should not be to partner with them at the current moment in time.
Yeah. But I'm suspecting if the Cancer Society called you and said, hey, would you be willing to meet with us? You know, we're interested.
We definitely would. We would accept anything that comes our way. But the first point of call is getting those consumers aware and getting that trust from the public itself.
So certainly communication, but not a formal partnership.
Exactly, driving the sort of growth so that it sort of pushes those NGOs to come to us and go, we want to back your company, we want to work with your company.
With your skin checking of the public, I really like the idea, but what happens if you're scanning someone on the street and they get a red rating? They might be a bit worried straight away. How are you going to deal with that?
Well, that is another intention that comes with the whole campaign, is that it will further drive this awareness, because in that instance, if someone was otherwise not aware, they would use the app, they'd be able to see how fast it is, which is another competitive advantage for the app. It's 20 seconds, they'll analyse their skin and realise that they do have a red rating and that it is that really should be checked. And so that will further drive that awareness and drive them to continue using the app in the future. We
also see that there are a lot of groups that these sort of pop-up stores are meant for groups walking by. So if one person gets that sort of red rating, it may alarm them. But what it will do is alarm the people that have come with them even more, letting them know that they need to get checked as well. And hopefully they'll go and check with the doctors at these moment in times.
So with your awareness campaign, how will you get to the rural areas, which both you're not going to have a pop-up thing and also they have low internet connectivity?
So with the rural areas, in your short term, our strategy looks at mainly targeting the urban population, mostly because that's got the largest concentration of people. Reaching and tapping into rural areas is very difficult if you're going at it alone. This is why you draw upon your partnerships with the government, because the governments are always looking at making health initiatives far more accessible within these regions, and by partnering with them, it will make tapping into those areas far more accessible and far more easy.
Did you worry at all? One thing I think in your intro, you said the shortage of dermatologists. Am I right about that?
Yes.
Okay. So did you worry at all that with this better awareness, and I just thought of that with the red ratings on the street and stuff, is that there's still a bottleneck. There's like too few dermatologists to
So yeah,
see worried people.
Yeah, our aim there is to reduce the sort of burden on dermatologists, because we see a lot of people going to dermatologists not sure, whereas if they're able to go to their GP.
Okay, good.